We're back with the final edition of our GoGamecocks.com college football preview as we look at the 2013 South Carolina football season. We're going to wrap up this segment with 5 predictions. Number 1, and this is probably the topic that was debated the most throughout the summer, or at least that I heard debated the most. Connor Shaw, will he start every game for South Carolina at quarterback this year? Your thoughts?
Well, I think that definitely he will, Josh, assuming he's not injured, of course. It's one of those things where Steve Spurrier doesn't really want, I don't think, to have to cycle in, rotate quarterbacks like he has in the past. He saw that, a lot of times that just doesn't work. Despite Dylan Thompson performing yeoman's work last year and coming in off the bench and saving the day a couple of times, he wants Connor Shaw in that game. Connor Shaw's a gutsy kid, a leader, a winner. He can fire up the troops. Not that Dylan Thompson can't, but I think Connor Shaw gives you your best chance to win. And as long as he's capable, Connor Shaw will start every game this season.
I agree, and you've got to look at the health factor. And he does play in such a way that he opens himself up, like a lot of quarterbacks in the modern offensive era, to injury. So anytime you could get a situation like that, and if you do, you feel very good and having a proven backup. But I think that Connor Shaw, the senior, the guy who's 17-3 as a starter, starts every game. As a fan, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here. My gut is the fans don't want to see sort of the hot hand of quarterbacking play out all year long. They'd rather have a guy. I think both of us agree right now that guy's Connor Shaw.
Sure.
Jadeveon Clowney, 13 sacks last year, a single season record. Is he above that this year? Is he below that? Your thoughts?
Josh, I think that he's going to be below it just for a very simple reason. 13 of those sacks last year, 4 of them came against Clemson. You just don't see that kind of single game production a whole lot. And plus, obviously teams are going to be double teaming him a whole heck of a lot. Quarterbacks are going to be running plays to the other side of the field. And as soon as they see that big monster break loose on the left side, they're going to start running and maybe already have a couple of receivers out there to dump the ball off to. 13 sacks is a big number to hit. I just don't think he's going to hit it this year.
I agree, and for the same reason, again, I think that, I've talked to a lot of opponents, players from opposing teams, coaches of opposing teams this year, and they all say the same thing: you got to have a plan for Jadeveon Clowney. And these guys spend all summer on these type of situations, whether it be a specific offense, a specific offensive style, a specific player. You know that everybody who's going to play South Carolina this year has spent some time this summer figuring out how do we keep number 7 from beating us. Now, that's a good thing for South Carolina because that means they're not thinking and working on something else. But I do think it means that Jadeveon Clowney does not get another 13 sacks.
Yeah.
Breakout player for 2013. I don't know if Jadeveon Clowney was a breakout player last year or not.
I don't think he qualifies.
But who is the guy for you this year who we will be talking about January 1 that we're not talking about right now?
Josh, there are several candidates of there, but just because they're going to have to play so much, you got to look at that linebacker core, and that's why I'm going to go with Sky Moore, freshman linebacker.
Wow, nice.
Just because it's one of those where Cedric Cooper is a really strong-looking linebacker, as you've mentioned previously, but he's been battling some injuries and all that kind of thing. Sky Moore was brought in to play right away, and with some of these injuries and no depth at the position, he's going to have to play right away. I think he'll adjust quickly. He'll make a few key tackles during those first 2 games and just keep getting better from there. Linebacker Sky Moore, freshman, I believe number 10, your breakout player for number 2013.
I like that pick. I'm not gonna be nearly as definitive, or probably not nearly as good with my answer, because I'm gonna pick 2 guys. I'm gonna hedge my bets a little bit. Number 1, Gerald Dixon Jr. I think the defensive tackle is a spot where they need a second guy from besides Kelsey Quarles. JT Surratt is solid. I don't know that he's spectacular. I think Dixon Jr. could be a really, really good football player this year and beyond. On the other side of the ball, Sean Carson. For me, he's not a guy, despite what coaches may be saying, who has got a shot to be the starting tailback, but I think he's got a shot to be just as important because Steve Spurrier will dump a screen to that guy. He will be a third down back. He's got a chance to hit some home runs in the backfield. For me, those 2 guys, forgive me for hedging my bets, one of those 2 or both of those guys will be the breakout player of 2013. Biggest shoes to fill. You've got candidates there like Cody Waldrop at center, like Bryson Williams in the secondary, to replace DJ Swearinger in the leadership and production he got there. Who do you have?
Well, again, there's a lot of candidates to prove, and I'm going to veer away from the running backs, Josh, because can anybody truly fill Marcus Lattimore's shoes? Not in terms of so much production, in terms of being that kind of team leader. The way I look at it, Josh, you have to look at some of these other positions, particularly wide receiver. Bruce Ellington's going to do what he does. So I'm going to say Nick Jones, the biggest shoes to fill. Not only are people going to be looking at him to be another kind of Ace Sanders or another Bruce Bruce Ellington if Ellington becomes an Ace Sanders. You look at Nick Jones and say, you really came on at the end of last year. Was that just because of you have a really, chemical kind of relationship with Dylan Thompson? Can you do that with Connor Shaw?
Right.
You saw it as well as I did, Josh. I mean, no matter what, Dylan Thompson always seemed to find Nick Jones on the field. Maybe it's just because they're both upstate kids. I don't know. But the fact is, if he can replicate that with Connor Shaw, Nick Jones can be a breakout player. He was just 4 yards away from scoring that breakaway touchdown in the Outback Bowl when a guy ran him down. He can fix that up and be a productive player this year.
I agree with you, and I'm going to go with Cody Waldrop, a guy that you mentioned earlier. He's got to be solid on the snap. That's, we've heard it a couple of times this fall. We even heard it with T.J. Johnson. When you look at T.J. Johnson, a guy who started every game of his career on the offensive line in the SEC, that to me is just amazing. Cody Waldrop is clearly a guy they expect that exact same thing from. They're putting him in here as a redshirt freshman. If he can not hurt you with snaps, if he can make those shotgun snaps and have them on time and have them where they need to be, I think he can be a really good player. But it's tough to play on the offensive line in the SEC. It's tough to play center and make all those line calls. It's tough to replace a guy like T.J. Johnson, and he is a freshman. Can he hold up to the task? We'll see. Record and bowl game. I'm the kind of guy, I don't even like predicting bowl games 3 days before the announcement because I feel like so much can go wrong. But the record's a little more cut and dry. What do you got, Dave?
It's a tough question, Josh, especially when it comes to trying to predict a bowl. But I've said before, I think South Carolina will win the SEC East. Now, I'm not really sure who the other loss will be to besides Arkansas, but I'm predicting another 11-2 season. We'll see how that goes. It could be in the SEC championship, it could be before, and yet they still get to play for the SEC championship, and that of course would trigger another game to who knows where they go. I guess a safe bet for me, I don't think that they will fall below the Capital One Bowl, because that bowl will pretty much get the top SEC team that doesn't play for a bigger title. So I'm thinking Capital One Bowl 11-2, maybe 11-3, depending on what happens in that postseason.
I think that's a solid bet. I'm going to be a little. I've said here before, folks know I think that Georgia's going to win that game, but I think that's going to be South Carolina's only loss. I think if you stack them up right now, they will be favored in Vegas to win every one of those other games, and I think that they will. And I know that's I don't know. Just saying it out loud makes me a little nervous.
Winning that many in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a team that's 11-1 at the end of the regular season. Doesn't play in Atlanta though, and then gets to a bowl game. Do you finish 11-2, like you're saying? Do you finish 12-1? I mean, I'd say given the SEC strength, you're looking at 12-1. That would be my prediction as we stand here right now. If you're 11-1. If you're not in the SEC title game, does that mean a BCS bowl? That's one of those things that South Carolina, and this is everybody's last year to get to a BCS bowl, but that's one of the few firsts that they've got left on Steve Spurrier's list, like to play a BCS bowl. Maybe this is the year.
Maybe go to New Orleans.
Yeah, absolutely. But Capital One, I think, is probably the safer bet. But 12-1, I can't see many Gamecock fans being upset with that.
Not at all. Not at the last 2 years.
That's all we've got this week. Be sure to catch our college football special section, our Go Gamecocks magazine. Those will come out on Sunday, August the 25th, and Thursday, August the 29th, which is also important for, first game of the year. North Carolina Tar Heels will be at Williams-Brice Stadium, and we'll get to quit talking about what we think is going to happen and start talking about what has happened. We'll see you then.
Stay classy, Columbia.